I was only 46 when I was diagnosed with young onset dementia, and I had 3 young girls. The youngest was 9, and the other one was 14, and the eldest had just gone to uni. She was 19, so it was a big shock. This fellow wasn't there. Well, he was somewhere else, though, not with me.
So at that point in time, you were in the middle of a divorce, is that?
It had just come through, and I write about this because it had just come through, and we just moved house at the weekend, and then on the Monday I got diagnosed. So we just bought the little house for my daughters and myself, and then I got diagnosed. So it was just totally world tilted everywhere. It was just wrong.
And how did the diagnosis come about?
Well, I'd had headaches, and what I thought were symptoms of stress. I got lost going to work and got confused taking my eldest daughter to some tutoring and then trying to find my way home. She assumed I could find my way back again, which I couldn't. And I got names muddled up at work, and I could no longer remember things. I had a razor-sharp memory, so I could remember Medicare numbers, everybody's phone number, bank account numbers, rattle everything off. It was no longer there, all gone, all faded.
Did it take long to get the diagnosis?
No, that's made it even more of a shock. Probably about 6 months, really, going to see a new doctor, and then having tests and scans, and then going into the doctor's thingy, the place where the doctor sits there, and then being told I had young onset dementia. It was just 6 months, and I didn't expect it because I was only 46. I thought he'd say stress, headaches, take some time off work, which would have been nice. But instead he said, no, you've got to retire immediately. You're going to be in a nursing home in 5 years' time and dead within about another 3. And that's 20 years ago this year, yeah. Yeah, so I've outlasted that.
What was your job at the time?
Oh yes, I was advising the Prime Minister on science and technology and managing the Cooperative Research Centres program, which had been set up by Hawke Heading. And it was, back then it was about $130 million a year, so I was managing that, as well as managing the Australian Science, Technology and Engineering Council. I was secretary for that. As well as policy to the Prime Minister on anything, medical research, nuclear research, waste disposal, genetic engineering, information technology, you name it. I had to provide advice and information and briefings, yeah.
And you had to retire from that job?
Yep, immediately. The doctor said I shouldn't be in any responsible position, let alone in charge of taxpayers' money, like the Cooperative Research Centres program. So that was the end of that.
And Paul, can you tell us about how you and Christine met and formed your relationship?
Yes, well, we actually met through an introductions agency, and we hit it off pretty quickly. We went for a long walk around Lake Burley Griffin and started seeing each other and got married a year later. But Christine did tell me after 1.5 hours walking, she's a good walker, it was a 6-hour walk, that she had Alzheimer's, which was then the diagnosis. But something told me I could handle that, and my father had died with Alzheimer's, so I had some idea of what it was like. But here we are. We're just about to come up to our 16th wedding anniversary. So.
So it would have been about 4 years into your diagnosis when you met?
I think so. Maybe about 3 or 4 years, yeah. Going to introductions agency, my daughter really thought I was succumbing to the dementia. You know, you don't do that sort of thing. But then, as she said, my eldest daughter said, "Mum, you don't even do dementia like a normal person." So yeah, I don't.
No.
No. So I went to an introductions agency and didn't tell them about the diagnosis because I thought, well, they won't give me any blokes. So there we go. I got you.
Yep.
Fair call.
And you're stuck with me, I hope,
Yep.
for a long
So,
time.
Paul, are you still working?
No, when we got married, I started to work reduced hours so I could spend more time with Christine. We decided that time was more important than money, and there was a lot to do. And as it turned out, it's been, 20 years of advocacy, basically. A lot of travel, a lot of going to conferences, talks, and so on. So I gradually was able to withdraw from full-time work and fully retired at the age of 55.
And yeah, you two travel a lot discussing dementia, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So can you tell us about some of your trips?
Oh, there was the round the world one. That was round the world in a month.
It was 3 months.
Weeks?
Yeah, 3 months, yes.
Yeah, went to You.
I better do it.
Yes.
Yeah. Fair enough. Now, Christine was invited to address national Alzheimer's conferences in a number of countries, and I put together a trip which got us to India and France, Israel, South Africa, Brazil, Dominican Republic, Taiwan, and ending up in Japan, where we spent 10 days and a documentary film was made of that, and appearances on television. And Christine was the first person with the diagnosis of dementia to actually appear in public in Japan. And it really started a very, very concerted move in Japan to address dementia. And yeah.
Same thing happened here too.
Yep.
You
That's
know,
very true.
First person
Yep.
to come out with the diagnosis because everybody is ashamed. They still are. I think that's wrong.
And so how did you come out, so to speak?
I wrote a book. I've got 4 books now, but I wrote my first book. And there was an article in the Canberra Times called "Who's Alzheimer?" making jokes about Ronald Reagan. So I wrote to them saying, it's not a joke, it's a terminal illness. Why is it a joke? You wouldn't make jokes about other terminal illnesses. So they apologised, and then they did a full-page article on me. So that was coming out all right. And then a television programme got in touch, and then there was a documentary on a commercial station. So after that, I'd come out.
So 4 books, what are the different books about?
Well, the first one's called "Who Will I Be When I Die?" and it's about being diagnosed and the fear of dying, not knowing who you're going to be, not knowing. The second one's called "Dancing with Dementia," and it's really about meeting Paul and all the advocacy work we did. And then the most recent one is called "Before I Forget." I've written a memoir, Penguin, to try and get something out before I forget about my life. And then there's a collection of my talks coming out as well called "Nothing About Us Without Us," because it's so often people with dementia are excluded from meetings about dementia because, well, I don't know why, because we're thought to be mindless empty shells. And we might find it difficult to get words out or understand what's going on, but we shouldn't be excluded. That's been my passion.
Most definitely. Paul, are there certain coping mechanisms that you've developed throughout the years?
Yes, one is patience. I've strangely enough, I've become very patient, haven't I?
Yes, you have.
right,
It's okay.
yes. I do as much as I can around the house and in our sort of joint shared life so that Christine can focus on what she can do best, which is really writing, thinking, talking, encouraging, that sort of thing.
And generally coping, because you also do a running commentary so that I don't lose the thread of everything. So talking about where we're going and what we're doing, and recap. You do that.
Yes.
And then when I struggle for words,
I usually manage to work out what you're trying to say. Yes.
Which is usually a lot of the time words have just.
Yeah.
I really got to try and last long enough for the medical research to find a cure for what I've got, because that's. Well, I've lasted a long time, but I just need a cure. Or something to stop it getting worse, because it's the words just going, and words used to be my thing. So,
The other aspect of my coping mechanism is to have something completely different to do. And
you do.
so one day each week I go into our local jail, which is one of the biggest in Australia as a chaplain. That way I'm not worrying about me, but starting to sort of think about other people and so on. So I always say to people who have a loved one with dementia that it's important that you have something that's completely for you, whether it's golf or whether it's gardening or in my case going into jail or whatever, just to have that time out to yourself.
That's probably applicable to all carers.
It would be.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Now, Christine, I believe you've developed some techniques to act normal, so to speak.
Faking it. I try hard to fake normal. It's by speaking slowly, waiting for the words to come, and then if they're not arriving, to try and just fade out or try and describe it in longhand, as it were, with a long way of talking about whatever it was I was going to talk about. Or just stop and hope nobody notices that I've obviously lost the plot. And there's lots of things I have to write everything down. Oh yeah, and put everything in the phone. Everything. Because what I did yesterday's in the phone, so that if someone asks me, did I enjoy yesterday, I have to look at it, because otherwise I won't know what I did yesterday. Or if they say, are you looking forward to tomorrow? I have to just wait a minute and look, and then I can work it out. But it's funny, I have to have this external memory. It's not funny, it's odd funny, yeah.
Are there any positives to having dementia?
Well, I'm not at work. When I first retired, I actually enjoyed seeing the world in the light, because I only ever saw it in the dark, collecting, after work, and it was really quite positive, gardening and doing things, and I would never have met you. There's a big positive. And having time to reflect, and having been able to contribute to something meaningful, I feel as if there's a legacy of something meaningful, because when I was advising the Prime Minister, it was useful stuff, but it wasn't meaningful to people. So what I'm doing now is more meaningful and helpful to people, and that
so
matters.
A lot of that is trying to generate more interest and support for medical research.
Yes, definitely. We definitely need medical research. It's a public good. As well as may well generate income, research, industry type spin-offs and benefits, but it's a public good. We should be spending money on things that benefit our nation. That's what I want my taxes to be spent on. It's like infrastructure isn't just roads, it's medical research. It's the backbone of our society, it's the backbone of how we look after each other. So I think it's really, really important.
Paul, when I was speaking with Ida just before, she was touching on the dementia-friendly communities I imagine you're probably quite familiar with the concept. Do you want to speak a little bit about those?
Yes, we've been very, very impressed with Japan, for example. They have now trained 6 million or more
At least.
people, just ordinary people, from school children right up through to elderly people, have done basic training in dementia, in helping people with dementia. And it means that a person with dementia who's still physically active, we're not talking about people in the late stages, can go to the local shops, and the local shop assistants will know how to help them with money, credit cards, shopping or whatever it is. Taxi drivers will understand why the passenger needs a bit of help getting in or out or finding their way home or whatever. Bus drivers, airports and so on. And that's where we're trying to go in Australia, to develop an awareness and understanding of dementia so that it's not seen as something odd, it's not something you particularly want, but people are being diagnosed, and the longer they can stay home, the safer they're going to be, the better off everybody's going to be. And if the local community, through taxi drivers, shop assistants, even the assistants in a doctor's surgery, for example, having a basic understanding that this person may not actually remember what was said to them. It's not a question of saying, simply, I'll just wait there for 10 minutes, because 10 minutes later the person may well have forgotten why they're sitting there. But getting that understanding through so it normalises and assists people to stay as well as they can, as long as they can, yeah.
Another important aspect that people with dementia are being asked what they want in Australia. What do they want from a dementia-friendly community? And near us there's a group running, and they've said they want better signage. Signs are very confusing. There are some signs now, more modern ones, that I just cannot work out at all. They just can totally confuse me. And then trying to make places more dementia friendly, not so many mirrors and shiny bits, and because light reflecting off shiny surfaces can look very confusing, and having floors that are different colours and shapes and patterns also is very difficult. So very practical.
Yeah, and public toilets with the cubicle doors a different colour to the outer to the way out. It's very simple things which often would cost almost nothing to implement. Will just make people a lot safer and a lot more secure. Yeah.
What can everyday people who may come across somebody who's living with dementia keep in mind in speaking with somebody or trying to help them?
Definitely remember that we're not doing this on purpose. We're doing it because bits of our brain are missing, and we don't have access to those bits of the brain that will help us understand what's being said or speak clearly or find our way. That we're not doing it on purpose. I often wish I could wear a t-shirt with a picture of my brain scan on it with a big arrow, this is why, because there's nothing visible. It's an invisible illness or condition, as we're meant to say nowadays. I know there are other invisible conditions, but
But it's not that you're being awkward when you can't answer a question.
And when I can't get a word out, and I'm getting all angry because you don't understand me, but you can't possibly understand me because I'm talking rubbish, I'm not doing it on purpose.
No. Yes, one very simple piece of advice is avoid open-ended questions. Don't say to somebody, what would you like to do? Rather say, would you like to do this or do that? And at least reduce the choice from sort of infinite to two.
And give clues.
Yep.
Don't say, did you enjoy yesterday? It'd be much better to say, did you enjoy going to the cafe yesterday and meeting up with some friends? Because that's more likely to help us find that memory.
What's your greatest fear, Christine?
Dying in a state of unknowing and not knowing my daughters.
Yeah, I haven't thought that far ahead, quite frankly. Sort of take it one day at a time. But yeah.
Okay, in my book I talk about my reflections on my life and why I'm coping with this much brain damage. And I talk about the sorts of things that my mother did with me, games and memory games and puzzles and word games, and they really set me up. And we used to do IQ tests for fun. Really set me up for life, and I call it future-proofing, because I believe it future-proofed me to last all of this time with all this brain damage and still be able to speak, because, you know, I am still obviously speaking, more or less. So yes, I want us to be able to future-proof generations to come. One day, if there's enough medical research, dementia will be history. Then we won't need to future-proof, but until then, we really must try and make sure that our children have as good an education as possible, memory games, IQ games, you know, spatial, visual, memory, all sorts of things my mother did with me.
What are the 5 basic things that you could do now?
I've got to try and remember them. You've got to look after your heart, that's that one. Eat healthily, exercise, enjoy socialising, and mentally challenge your brain. And those are shown to help prevent dementia, but I see no reason why once you've got a diagnosis you shouldn't carry on with all of those things to try and slow the functional decline. I can't, until there's medical research, I can't slow the actual damage, but I can try and make what's left in my brain work as best it can. Professor Hodges from Neuro, he certainly finds me remarkable, probably a bit of an enigma. He's seen one other case in Cambridge, I think, where someone's lasted this long, but I'm not meant to last this long, that's basically. And the amount of damage to my brain means there's a lot of connectivity problems because it's shrunk and there's gaps, and even the connection between the 2 halves of the brain is thinning. Nothing can be done, and I'm losing a certain percentage
About 4%
per year of the brain. So I just have to keep on working. It's a bit like being on the sinking Titanic. I have to keep on running uphill to keep my feet dry. So yes, it's unusual to last this, it's extremely unusual to last this long, but there's no doubt there's something dramatically wrong. And how I experience it, apart from words gone, everything's slow. My thinking is slow, and trying to cope, everything's very hard work. It's hard to fake normal. Yeah. Oh yes. Paul puts on the Exelon patch to try and help with functional thinking and things. And without that, I really do slow down. So I do have help with that. That's the only one, isn't it?
Yes,
that
that's right.
helps.
Yeah.
It helps with increasing the level of acetylcholine, I think it is, in the brain. So it helps with the connections, of which I don't have so many. So I need as much chemical transmitter as I can to help have a few signals firing in my brain.
And I guess part of what you hope medical research might produce is some sort of medication or
Ideally a cure, so I could get better, but I would settle for not getting any worse. So there's nothing for dementia. There's nothing to stop the brain disappearing. So that would help. If it could stop it in its tracks, that would be fantastic. Growing new brain, who knows? But I would like it stopped in its tracks so that I'm cope with what I've got.
And also research into care for people with dementia.
Yeah.
The importance of social support and so on, very practical aspects of medical research, yeah.
But for me, the vital one is stopping the disease process that I have. Unfortunately, there's over 100 different causes of dementia. Whether medical research is going to have to come up with over 100 different ways to stop it, I don't know. It would be wonderful if there was some fundamental biochemical process or a couple of fundamental biochemical processes that could be addressed. Whatever, however they're fixed, I want them fixed soon. I don't think I can last too many more years. I don't know, it's not so good now, no.